Okay, for anybody who sees those don't drink and drive PSAs and is completely unaffected by them, watch this movie. Shot Collar tells the story of a family man who has a fatal traffic accident which results in the death of a friend. He gets sentenced to a 1.5 years in prison, but the things that he has to do to survive in prison not only makes him lose his humanity, but turns him into a career criminal. You know what, people? Every single year, there's at least 2 or 3 movies that I have no knowledge of whatsoever until suddenly they're released or about to be released, and I see small little ads here and there, or I hear word of mouth, and they are a gigantic surprise amongst all of the blockbusters and all the movies that we see advertised out the ass. And this year, Shot Collar is one of those movies. I had never heard of this movie. I had never heard of the production, never saw a trailer for it until about 2 days ago when a coworker told me about it. I looked online, saw that it was coming out in theaters this Friday coming up, and it was premiered over at the LA Film Festival to a lot of really good reviews. So I decided to check this movie out, and like I've already said, one of the bigger surprises that I've had so far in 2017. Shot Collar is brought to us by the director Rick Roman Wall. This is the guy who directed that movie Snitch with The Rock. Also did a movie called Felon, which has a lot of similarities to this one. And basically this story is telling the failures of the prison system, where it's kind of dubbed as a rehabilitation center and a way to change somebody from their crime and all of their wrongdoing ways. It's so poorly conceived and so poorly ran and poorly executed that that rehabilitation program itself is what creates the criminal inside of them. All the things that they have to do just to survive the day in prison sends them deeper and deeper into the crime world that we are trying to pull them out of. There was actually an HBO limited series. It was called The Night Of. It was about 8 episodes. If you're interested in that topic, definitely check that show out because it's a different spin on the story that we're talking about right here in Shot Collar. But I saw a lot of similarities with some of the endpoints in The Night Of and Shot Collar. So highly recommend checking that out. But as far as Shot Collar, let's talk about the positives. The biggest positive in this movie by far is the performance of our leading man. Nikolai Valdo, if I'm actually pronouncing that correctly, you will all recognize him as the Kingslayer on Game of Thrones. And even though he does great things on that show, this is the best thing that I've ever seen him do as far as his acting ability. He plays this family man, he plays this hardened criminal, and the story is set up in a way where you get to see him in both sides of his life at the same time. It's kind of a non-linear storytelling. You get to see him 10 years later, and then you get to see all the events that lead up to his release of prison. And it's a really interesting way that they kind of present that story because it allows his performance to really shine, because you get one scene where he's this straight-laced family man trying to get home. All he's concerned with is seeing his wife and kid again. And then you see this 10-year hardened career criminal ex-convict who's murdering people and setting up drug deals and arms deals, and is so cold and calculated, and even just the way that he walks and talks and carries himself is completely different than the person that you just saw in the scene preceding it, whenever he was just talking about his wife, talking about his kid, talking about just getting out of prison so that he can get back to them.
He'll be with the big boys. So you gotta stand up for yourself, because once you're marked in there, move! It will never end.
This is one of those performances that really makes me keep an eye on an actor, and this is definitely an actor that I'm going to keep an eye on. It actually makes me have even more motivation to catch up on Game of Thrones because I know this guy is in it, and I want to see more of what I saw in Shot Collar, hopefully in his performance in Game of Thrones. But you also have a great supporting cast in this movie. You got Amari Hardwick, who is playing basically the main probational officer. He's the probational officer for our lead character, Money, and he's also a probational officer for John Bernthal's character, and his intertwining of these different gangsters and these different ex-convicts really kind of brings the story all together, and it kind of has this connective tissue while they're out of prison. But he's also the driving force trying to bust this arms deal that is going on, that they're building to for this third act of this movie. And his character was really strong, because you can have a cop character who just comes across as somebody who's going to get in our main character's way, and even though the main character's a criminal, just like in Breaking Bad and Dexter, you always root for them anyway. But this guy, you actually root for him. You know where he's coming from. You see the strength inside of him, and you see his motivation is there to not only just stop what this person is doing, but ultimately he wants to help them. He wants to get them to a point when they don't feel like they need to do arms deals and drug deals and murders. He wants to see them back in the world as a person who is part of a family, part of society, and not a part of this horrible world of criminal. Lake Bell plays the wife of Money, and she does really good as well. I've not seen too much dramatic from her. I've always seen her in comedies, but she really does well with the dramatic scenes that she's given in this movie. She doesn't have a ton of screen time, but the little bit that she's utilized in this, she's utilized very well.
I killed Tom.
It's an accident. People don't go away for accidents.
You get to see this woman not only lose her husband to the prison system, but you get to see her lose her husband to the criminal world, and you get to see her witness his humanity slip, and the person that she loved and she knew when he went in start to disappear, and you really just kind of gravitate towards that because you see it on her face in some scenes, how horrified she is that this is the same man that she married, and she's totally just does not recognize him at all. You get Jeffrey Donovan, who most people recognize from Burn Notice. He does really good in the small role that he has as kind of the main big cheese of the first prison that Money gets sent to.
The fact is, a place like this forces us to become warriors or victims. The only thing that matters is you getting home to your family in one piece.
As this white supremacist leader, he's pretty chilling, but the main side character and the main side actor that I want to talk about, because I just love the hell out of this guy, and that's Jon Bernthal. This is an actor who I never see lose pace or lose steam. It seems like every single time I see him, he does better than the preceding performance I saw him give, whatever movie or TV show I saw him in last. He's always building and progressing. And his character is really interesting. His character is named Shotgun. Whenever Money first gets to this prison, and yes, he does have a name, it is Jacob, but I'm going to call him by Money because for the most of the movie, he's known by Money. So, Money, when he first gets to the prison, he's basically, Shotgun is his into this white supremacy gang. This is the gang that he has to join in order to survive, because otherwise he's going to get killed by everybody else. And Shotgun is the one who kind of brings him into the gang, who challenges him. And even when they get out of prison, he's really kind of like the person who just kind of sticks with Money and wants to make sure that not only does he survive, not only is he protected, but he's going to succeed in this arms deal that he is setting up. But there's also a twist with his character, which I'm not going to spoil, but whenever that twist comes, whenever you get to kind of see the other side of the character of Shotgun, the other side of Jon Bernthal, his performance is that much better, because everything, all the emotions that that actual person will be going through whenever that kind of reveal happens, he brings it to the screen in spades. Now, as far as the story, I think the thing that really kind of makes this movie stand out amongst some of the movies that are similar to it for me is the fact that they really hammer home and focus on the theme of family. The whole time, everything that Money is doing, murdering people, setting up deals, doing all these things that he knows he's not supposed to be doing, and ultimately he doesn't want to do. He does it because he's trying to protect his family, because everything that he has to do to survive inside of prison gets him dug into this hole in this gang that he cannot escape unless he puts his family in danger, and everybody goes on the run. So he just grits his teeth, sucks it up, and continues down this criminal path, down this gang war, because he wants to protect his family. And that's a really interesting aspect that you don't necessarily see a lot in movies like this. It's always about money, or it's about, you know, I've been a criminal so long I don't know how to be anything else. This is a guy who does not want to be a criminal, but is stuck in it because he wants his family to survive. And that life of crime that he is stuck in is so bloody and gory and gritty that it was actually surprising to me, coming off of Snitch, how far the director took it in Shot Collar. There is blood and gore galore in this movie. You get to see some of the most violent shankings, some of the most violent prison riots, some of the most violent murders in this movie that I've seen in quite a while, and it does stick with you when you see it. You're like, God damn, this shit is intense. But above all on the positives, really going back to the storyline, the thing that I really enjoy about this movie, just like I did with The Night Of, which is why those things have very similar tones and themes to me, and why I keep bringing it up, is the fact that it really makes you question how successful our prison system and our rehabilitation system is in this country. Because you think about how many people are either put in who are innocent or put in for very small crimes, who then come out, these career criminals, these gang members who are stuck for the rest of their lives, otherwise they are endangering their lives or the lives of their loved ones, all because of the setting that they were stuck in during their rehabilitation. Makes you really ask a lot of questions.
These cops think the more they lock us down and isolate us, it strips us of our power. They even think we're a dying breed. they're dead wrong.
And that's one of my favorite things a movie can do for me, is to make me turn the movie off after it's done, walk away, and continue to think about it and ask questions. But as far as the negatives, there's a few small things in this movie that is worth noting. Number one is that even though it does do a lot of interesting things as far as sticking to the family storyline and being really well executed enough to make you ask questions, there's a lot of aspects to the storyline of this that is going to feel very familiar if you watch a lot of movies of this type. Even the movie preceding this, or preceding Snitch, Felon, by the same director, starring Stephen Dorff, tackles a lot of the same storylines, a lot of the same issues and questions that this movie does. I think this movie does it better, but it does tackle a lot of things that we've seen before. A small nitpick that I had, which probably is going to go away whenever I watch this movie a second time, is that some of the prison lingo and the criminal lingo that they use in this, they don't really hold your hand as far as explaining what some of the meanings of those terms and phrases are. So it takes you to about halfway to sometimes 2/3 of the way through this movie on some of the terms that keep getting thrown out to understand what exactly the characters are talking about. It's not a gigantic glaring mistake or a flaw in the movie, but it is something that for a while, at least the first half of the movie, I was like, what are they talking about? They keep saying that, but I don't quite understand what they're talking about. Then it clicks, then you get it, but you do spend the first 45 minutes of the movie going, huh? And the last negative that I have, which is another small negative because it does go along with one of my positives, the fact that they kind of told this in a non-linear fashion where they open up the movie and they show you everything from the time he's released 10 years later up until the finale, and then they intersplice it with everything from the accident leading up to his release. It's kind of confusing and convoluted as far as the storytelling goes. It really, really helps the performance of the lead actor, Nikolai, and really brings that character to another level because you get to see so many different sides of him intercut with each other, but it does bear down the story a little bit because you're suddenly in corporate world whenever he's a good guy, and then you're suddenly in criminal world, and then you're back when he's first getting into prison and he's still a good guy, and now you're back in criminal world, and then he's deeper into the prison life, and now you're back in the criminal world. It does convolute things a little bit. But despite all that, I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. Highly recommend going to see it this weekend or on VOD. I think it's also available on that this Friday, so definitely check this movie out. Highly recommend this if you're into prison dramas, if you're into violent crime thrillers, if you're into movies that are like character studies of how somebody can go from good to bad, kind of like Breaking Bad in a 90-minute fashion. All of those things, you get elements of that in Shot Collar, and it's all executed pretty damn well. So if you like these types of movies and you're interested in Shot Collar or interested in seeing Nikolai give an awesome performance, if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, definitely check this thing out in theaters. So what did you guys think of Shot Collar, for those of you that have seen it? Do you think this movie really grips you by the throat as far as playing on the themes and the storyline of our judicial system and our prison system and the rehabilitation system of this country? Or do you feel like this was just kind of a throwaway, slam-bang prison action crime drama? Whatever your thoughts on Shot Collar, put them down below and we'll talk about it, guys. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. If you want to check out some of my social media links, I got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter down below, as well as my new Patreon page where I have a lot of exclusive content for patron eyes only. So check that out, guys. A great way to support the channel and get exclusive content for you. And if you want to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.